Hello and welcome back to the channel with me, the Orienteering Kid, where today we're in Landshut for day 4 of the TORUS training week. Yes, we're here on the 4th day of the TORUS training week, a week organised by experienced course setters from across Europe, and as always these events can be found on the Tempo simulator, the link to which can be found in the description of this video. Now we're off to Germany today with Ralph Corner planning the course and Jan and Dusan, as seems to be regular this week, are advising. So I'm looking forward to competing in a different event with another planner, getting a slightly different bit of training in, and I'm looking forward to see what sort of event we have today. So why don't we just jump straight into it. We're going in the European TORUS Training Week section and we're into day 4, which today is a 1 to 5,000 map with the old map spec of ISOM 2007 and 2.5 meter contours. So the maps are going to show a lot more of the area because the scale is a lot bigger. We also have 9 stations like the previous 3 days, with zero tolerance being 5 meters and there are no side problems and zeros should be clear. We are now moving to an open land terrain with landforms and trees rather than the urban areas we had in day 1 and day 2. So it's definitely testing a different part of us today. It's going to be better training for us. I think this is possibly one of my weaker areas, so I'm expecting a few mistakes, but we will see how we go. And also flags are going to be virtually added to the photos and the map for station 5 is shown smaller in scale to the others. So it will probably be 1 to 4,000 or 1 to 3,000 map instead there, which shouldn't affect us too much. As always, my answers will be going in the top right hand corner of the screen so you can see exactly what I'm putting at the moment that I do, and yeah, we will see how we get on with today's event. So let's go into it now and we will load station 1. Okay, so we've got the paved area with the branches of bush, there's 2 little indents. We believe we're in the right bit, we're going to have to, although there's no, that is the wrong bit actually. That corner is Foxtrot, that is Alpha, that indent is Charlie, and that again is the wrong one. So that was a very interesting first station, and that one may have fooled quite a few of you, to be honest. I originally was just going to believe we were on the right set of car park sections, but then I noticed that the leg of land that Foxtrot was on also had a tree, and if we equated that to what the map said, you would have noticed that there was actually meant to be no tree there. So we must have been on the car park section behind the bushes with Alpha and Charlie on it, and so that one was a 0, and we actually returned to that in the 5th task as well, if people weren't paying attention correctly there. So I think that was a very good first station and may have caught quite a few of you off guard there with the first task. But yeah, there's not too much to say about that. I thought all the tasks were clear and we will now go on to station 2. Okay, we've now got the fence with Bravo and Charlie on it. There's a few trees going around. There's a path to the right hand side. The fence, second tree back. That looks like it's Alpha. That's the wrong fence. Middle of those trees, there isn't anything there. End of the fence is Bravo, out the back is Echo. So again, that was another good station. I think the fence was definitely clear with Bravo and Charlie on either end of it. You could see the line of 4 trees and the line of 2 trees behind it as well, and the 2 tricks being in the middle of the middle 2 trees in the line of 4 and also on the wrong fence because we could only see one on the photo, but we wanted the left hand one which would have been off the photo, but quite a few of you might have put Charlie for that. I think the first task was potentially the least clear because it was quite hard to see both trees, but I think it was clear that Alpha was on the further back tree as there didn't seem to be any distinct trees behind Alpha, so I think that was good. And now we will go on to station 3. Okay, we've got a knoll, we've got a few knolls, Echo at the back, and patches of trees. Is this going to be... okay, so those must be the sets of knolls, and so that's one we're not at, and I also believe that... so that is Foxtrot. I've just got that one correct for the wrong reasons. Okay. Delta on the end of that hill, and is it on the right? I'm going with Echo on the top of the hill, and I actually got quite lucky there because the first one I believe definitely was a 0, but not because I necessarily knew exactly where we were. I think the key to that one was noticing the rootstock, which we did go to in task 2. But yeah, I may have actually got the first one wrong. It may have actually been Alpha or Charlie, to be honest, but we will see. But I'm fairly happy with the rest of the tasks there. I think they were all good and clear, and we will now go on to station 4. Okay, they're all very close here, apart from, remember, Foxtrot's out the back. There's 2 hills. Okay, those must be the 2 hills with Charlie on the second one. We want between the 2 of them. Does that work with the area? That's got to work, hasn't it? Yeah, so that one must be Delta. By the tree, we want that side of it. It's Bravo. On the top of that hill is a 0. In the pit, it's Alpha. And is it on the right one? No, it can't be, can it? I may be wrong, but I believe that's definitely going to be a 0. I think the spur that the task was on was out the photo, and so I think that one was a 0. But I think that was good, working with the small area with Alpha to Echo, trying to identify the 2 hills, but I think they were clear, and the 0 instead of Echo, with Echo being at the foot of the hill and we wanted on top of the hill. So that might have caught a few of you out there, but I don't think there was much wrong with that at all, and so we will go on to station 5. Okay, 2 trees back with Charlie and Delta. There's another tree with Foxtrot and another tree with Echo. So that must be the wrong hill. That is the Foxtrot, that is Charlie. That's clearly a 0. Although it made me think, and that one is Echo as well, so I potentially could have done that a bit quicker, but that was a nice little trick going out the photo over the path that must be behind us to try and fool a couple of you a bit. But I think the harder 0 there was the first task, identifying whether we were in the right place, but to me there just wasn't enough trees on that hill, and you could also see the right amount of trees on the hill below it on the map, so I think that one was clearly a 0, and I think that was another good station, and I'm actually surprised I did it that quickly, to be honest. I didn't quite expect to do any of these stations as quickly as I have been doing, but there we go. And so with that we will go on to station 6. Okay, we've got stairs or railings potentially with Charlie and Bravo, and Alpha's at the bottom of them actually. That part of the hill, so stairs, that's got to be Delta. That's the bush with the tree the other side. Oh no, that's a 0. That bit of tree there, other side of the stairs, if it's not Bravo, I don't know what it is. That has to be Echo, and foot, or that end of the stairs, is Alpha. So that one took me a bit longer, but it was mainly tasks 2 and 4, or 2 and 3 actually, which I was trying to work out. But I think the 2 trees that were mapped were actually fallen trees potentially, but I think it was fairly clear that they were there. And so with that, I think it was clear that the second task was out the photo to the right hand side, but I also think the location of the centre of the circle based with the location of Bravo would surely have shown that that one should be Bravo rather than a 0. I also think the positioning of Bravo and Alpha on the hill may have made some of you mispunch with Alpha or Bravo, because in the photo they were Alpha Bravo, but if you were looking at it based on the hill, Alpha was going to be the one on the top of the hill because it's further to the left along the hill, but in the photo it was definitely clear that Alpha was at the foot of the stairs. It did take me a second to realise that. But that was another good station. I think these stations are becoming very interesting in the terrain, and we will now go on to station 7. Okay, this is a bit harder. We've got 4 stones with Alpha and Bravo, and we want that corner of the hill. So that must be Charlie, middle one is Alpha. Right at the end of that woodland patch, that's the wrong one. Is that going to be... That could only really be Echo, unless it's Delta. I think that one could only really be Echo, but it's on the wrong corner. And is it right out the back on the back hill?
Can I believe that? No.
As I was going into the station, I did actually say that that would look like a harder station, and I think it potentially was. I think the first 3 tasks were the clearest, but it is whether the 2 zeros at the end were actually zeros. And judging by the fact he said zeros are clear, I think the first one was definitely clear, but the second one might not have been as clear as I hoped, so that might actually be delta rather than 0. But we will go have a look at that. I think that's definitely a station we need to go look over, and we will go on now to station 8.
Okay, we've got more landforms. The hills are definitely getting harder. That does look like a re-entrant with delta in it. That hill, that's the path going round. Path bend, so that does look like it's delta. End of that hill surely is echo. That tree right out back, can I believe? Well, there's only one tree there, so that must be Bravo, Foxtrot on the end of that spur. And that part of the hill must be Alpha. And I believe that one was a no-zero station. I think the path with Delta wasn't the clearest, but when you got the map and you could see the shape of the hills, I think it was clear that there should be a path there. And also the task with Bravo out on the tree out the back. It's definitely on a tree, and it was the only tree really in the area. So I think that one was also clear as Bravo, and I think there weren't really any zeros, or there shouldn't be any zeros in that station. So I think that was another good one. And now we will go into the final station, station 9. Okay, Alpha's right at the back. It's going to be identifying what that is at some point. Hill, is that the shape of the hills? Well, that's the kind of paved area, so it must be out the back. First hill, I'm going to have to believe that is Foxtrot. By the trees is Bravo. That looks like it's the wrong part of the hill. And is it on the fence out the back? There is no zoom, helpfully, but I believe that could actually be it. So I'm going with Alpha. And that did look like a very hard task to finish the day, but 214 seconds I don't think is too bad for that. Let's go have a look at some of the stations. Now, station 1, I think this was a very hard station actually to come in on, because we look and we have so many parallel features on the map, but how do we identify we're in the right place? Because that could easily be Delta on the end of that bush, but it's not, because if you look at the Foxtrot end, you will see that there is a tree coming out of it, and if we go across from where the centre of the circle is, there is no tree on that part, so we must be on this one instead, with Delta being on this one with that tree and Foxtrot being on the one with the tree just here. So we actually want one that's right over here, possibly with that tree, and so that one is a 0. And then we come to the one that we've just discussed with Foxtrot with the tree, so we realise our mistake potentially, and that one is Foxtrot. And then we come right to the front of the set, and it is more rounded here, so we could definitely tell these are the front ones, and we want the left hand side one of Alpha. And then we go into the corner with the one that we now know has Delta on it, and we go in and we see that Charlie is in the corner of that. And then you notice that we actually go back to the second part of it, and we want the inside corner, which does look a lot like the inside corner of Echo, but as we've said before, we've now moved to the second part of it like in the first task, and so we know that that one must also be a 0. But as I have said before, I think this was a really hard station to come in on, so if you managed to get that all right, very well done, and even if you managed to get some of them right, I still think you've done really well there. The second station did seem a bit easier, but it's still quite challenging. We obviously have these 2 lines of trees. We have the 4 and then the 2 behind, and you can see that as the 2 and the 4, and there is a bit of path running to the side, and I'm presuming there are some trees to the right hand side which we can't see, and there's a fence with Bravo and Charlie on it, and we want the left hand side of this fence, and we want the second tree back. And to me, there isn't a tree behind Alpha, but there is quite clearly now a tree in front of Alpha, so Alpha must be on the tree behind, which is the tree we want, and so that one is Alpha there. And then we go to the left hand side of Alpha, which immediately will show you that is a 0, but quite a few of you might have put Charlie for this because it's on the right end of a fence back there, but as we've said before, if this first one is Alpha, this fence will be out the photo to the left, and so that one has to be a 0, but I won't be surprised if quite a few of you put Charlie there. We then want the middle of 2 trees, and it's the trees on the line of 4, so you are definitely looking at these
4 at the front, and Delta is between the left 2 trees, and Foxtrot is between the right 2 trees. So it's neither of them because we want the middle 2 trees. And if you look in the middle of the 2 trees, you will see we have Echo there. But Echo is a lot smaller than Delta and Foxtrot, so it must be between the 2 trees behind it. And so there isn't actually a control between these 2 trees, and that one must be another 0. And then we go to the fence, which we've identified before to being the right hand side of Alpha, and we want the end closest to us this time, so that one must be Bravo. And then for some of you that put Echo for the third task, you would have then realised that you were wrong, and actually Echo is on the trees behind. So the answer to that one must be Echo. And that was actually quite an interesting station. Working our way in, I think these were some of the easier stations at the start, potentially, but I think that was good. And now we come to potentially the hardest station here, and it was possibly my lucky mistake which turned out to be okay, but we want the top of a hill, and originally I thought that this hill here was going to be this one in front, and we can see the woodland of these few to the right hand side. So I saw that there was no control on top of this hill, and so I zeroed it. But it is clear now that we are down here with the rootstock, or the wood pile, and we have the 3 knolls in the woodland there, and actually you're meant to look across and see that Alpha is on the top of a hill and potentially go with Alpha, but it is clearly the hill in these patch of 3 and not the hill behind it which we want, and so that one is actually a 0, but I did get quite lucky there. And then we actually come to the hill that we want, and we have the rootstock, or the pile of wood, and Foxtrot is on that pile of wood, so that one must be Foxtrot there. Then we go out to the patch of 3 that were in the woodlands, so it's Alpha, Bravo or Charlie here, and we want the hill furthest away from us, which is the hill that Bravo is on, and it's on the foot of that hill, so it must be Bravo. And then we jump back, we keep going back and forward, and I like that about this station, and we want to the foot of the hill right in front of us, and we want to the northeastern foot, which is the side which Delta is on, so that one must be Delta. And then we look up and we go to the hill behind these 3 knolls as well, and we want to identify whether Echo is in the right place, but by going with northwestern part of the hill, we know that it must be on top of the hill, and Echo is on top of the hill, and definitely the steeper bit of hill, so I'm happy to say that one is Echo. But I do think that was definitely a harder station, but we could get very lucky with the first 0, and I definitely did there. But that is the way it goes sometimes. And now I think this station was potentially a bit easier, but we still had to think a fair bit. We want between 2 hills, and most of the time I spent here was trying to get used to the map and working out where exactly we are, but I think it is clear that the only place we can really be is this patch of woodland with the 2 hills and the distinctive tree in it, and we want between the 2 hills. So these are the 2 hills, and Delta is between them with the shorter stake because it's actually in the gap between the 2. So that one is Delta. We then come to what looks like a circle on the hill, and I think a lot of you might have put Charlie here if you're just using the centre of the circle, because it is on that hill, but the control description says it should be the northeastern side of a tree. So we are actually looking at the distinctive tree, and Charlie is not on the northeastern side of the tree because it's on the top of the hill, so it must be on the western side, and actually Bravo is on the correct side, and the shorter stake shows it's behind the hill a bit but on the tree, so I think that one is good as Bravo there. And then we go to the other hill, and we want the top of that hill. So if we've already put Delta, we know it's not Delta, but I think quite a few of you might have put Echo, but that is clearly at the foot of the hill rather than the top, so I want the control to be about there, and so that one must be a 0. Then we come right to the front, and we go from these 2 hills, we want in front of it, and we want it in a pit, and we want the northwestern edge of that pit, and there does seem to be a small pit here where Alpha is, and it's definitely on the northwestern side of that pit, so I'm happy to say that one is Alpha. And then this 0 took me a small bit of time, but I'm confident to say it is a 0 because we are going back past this hill, and then there's a hill and then a depression, and now actually looking at it I'm debating whether it should actually be Foxtrot, because I was looking at it and thinking these are 2 hills, but actually it's a hill and a depression, and then this 3rd hill comes out, so this one might actually be Foxtrot rather than 0, and so this is looking like this is my first mistake of the day. So I'm now going to say that one is Foxtrot because it's on the hill out the back there, but I think this was a hard one to tell, and if some of you zeroed it like me, I wouldn't be surprised to hear that. We now go to my quickest station, which I think was potentially the easiest station, station 5, and we are asked to identify 1 tree back up against a hill. And when we went into the station, we noticed that Alpha, Charlie, Delta and Foxtrot are on 4 trees along the line of the hill, and the Charlie and Delta trees are quite close together. But when we look at this hill, we can see there's only 2 trees actually on the hill, so where are the Charlie and Delta trees trees really, because these two are far apart. So we then look at other places we could be, and you can see this other long hill here, and there are definitely 4 trees on the hill, and 2 of them are closer together. So we now know we're on the wrong one, and so that one must be a 0. And then we come out to the actual hill we should be on, and there's the 4 trees, and we want the right hand of these 4 trees, which is the one that's Foxtrot's on. So that one is Foxtrot. And then we go to the patch of 2 trees that we've used so far, and we want the left hand of these 2, and so that one should be Charlie. And then we come right to the front of the photo really, and we have 2 trees, and we want the left hand side of them. And if you weren't focusing, you might have easily put Bravo here. However, to me it's clearly not, because if we are stood below here and we are looking out, where is the fence and the path and the other fence actually? It must be all behind us. These 2 trees must be behind us, and we must actually be looking at these 2 trees. So that one is a 0. And then we come to the actual patch of 2 trees we're looking at, and we want the right hand of the 2. So that one is Echo, and I think that was actually a fairly easy station once you noticed that we were on the wrong hill at the start. So I think 12 seconds for that could be very quick for it, but I also think it wasn't too bad, as all the controls were on trees, so we knew that we were only going to be working with trees, and actually all 5 tasks were, but we were working with it as we went, and I think that one was good. And then we come to actually the other side of the hill. We can see we were stood over there looking this way, but now we're stood about here looking over, and we want the end of the hill just before the path runs through it. Now as we loaded, I had noticed that Alpha and Charlie were on staircases, so I originally thought that the answer to this one could be Charlie on the top of that hill, but then I noticed the staircases were separate to the path, and looking at the map you can see the staircases, and you can also see a second gap in the hill there. So we must actually be going for this part of the hill, and we are going for the southeastern part of the hill, and Delta seems to be in the correct position there, so I think that one is good as Delta. And then this 0 I don't think was the clearest, because I'm struggling to picture this as a tree, but it must be based on the map, because we have the tree at the foot of this end of the hill, and then we come along and we have 2 trees, but by coming along this must be the first tree, and we must see the second tree there, and actually the massive tree behind that confirms it. So we are actually looking at Foxtrot being about here, which is a long way away from the centre of the circle. So where we want is a long way out the photo to the right hand side, and so that one is a 0. Then we come to the other side of the staircase and we want a tree, and again I don't think this tree is too clear, but I'm happy to say there is some vegetation over by Bravo, and it does look in about the centre of the circle based on other things like the stairs. So that one is definitely Bravo on the northwestern side of that tree. And then we come to the patch of 2 trees, which we've said before are these 2, and we want the northeastern one, which is the one to the left in this photo, and Echo is on that tree, so that one should be Echo. And then we go to the northeastern end of the stairs, which we have been using so far for most of the station, and so Alpha is at the right end of those stairs, so that one should be Alpha there. But yeah, I don't think that station was too bad. I think some of these trees were fairly ambiguous, however, so trying to spot them was fairly difficult, but I don't think they was too bad, and I think the 2 tasks involving those areas were clear. And now we come to what I think is the hardest station of the day, but the first 2 tasks weren't too bad, and actually the first 3 tasks weren't too bad. The key thing here is noticing these 4 rock piles are the 4 black triangles, and in doing that we know we are looking at this hill here, and we want the corner that is pointing straight at us. The corner doesn't look too clear, but I think we know that 0s are going to be clear, and so Charlie must be in about the right place at the southern part of this hill, so I'm good to say that one is Charlie. And then here we want between 2 piles of rock, and we want between the middle 2, and I had noticed that Bravo was between the closest 2, and so Alpha was between the middle 2, and so that one is Alpha there. And then we come to what I think are 3 0s, but I'm going to be tentative, especially with the last one. The first one is on a copse. We want the southeastern copse, and we want the southeastern tip of that copse, and to be honest, looking at it, this could be running simultaneously along, and so Foxtrot would be on the end of the closest one. However, these trees do look a lot taller in comparison to these, and I believe they're similar trees, so this row must be closer than the second row, and you can actually see a second row poking into the map there. So I believe Foxtrot should be about there, miles away from the actual location, and so that one should be a 0. But I think that one was potentially quite hard to gauge, and I think this one was even harder potentially to grasp, but I think now it's clear that Echo is on this corner here, and you can just see a small bit of white and then it disappears. So I believe this is where it goes inwards and outwards, and as we follow that along we can see there aren't any more indents or changes in the direction there. So I'm fairly happy to say that Echo is on this corner and is not actually in the earth wall section. So that one should be a 0, and I think actually a fair few of you might have put Delta because of the shorter stake, but I do think that's a lot further back, as we are about to see with this final task. However, I also don't believe it's in the right place for this task, because as we're looking along we can see we actually want it to be in line with the furthest tree or the furthest patch of woodland, and as we look it's mainly kind of in line with the middle set. So I actually think Delta is about here, not actually on the northern end of that hill, and I think that was actually 3 zeros to end that station. But I definitely think it was the hardest station of the day, and I think some of the zeros there might have tricked quite a few of you, so we will see that at the end of the day. And then we come to what I think was a no zero station, but I think it was quite a good no zero station. I think it was quite tough in parts. The first task we come up with, we want the bend in a path, and how do we know that we are actually looking at a path? Because to me from the photo it's not really clear there is a path anywhere. So the thing I noticed mainly was this hill running out the back, so we could either be looking at this hill with the couple of trees on it, and you can see a few trees, so it could easily be that, or we're looking at this parallel feature here being this hill. But if we are looking at that hill we should be seeing a road really, and we should be stood on the road, so we can't be stood there. And as we know that the viewing position will be on the map, I think we are confident to say we are actually stood looking at this hill. And I know it's not too clear from the photo, but you can see a small little patch of hill running along here pointing towards the Delta kite, which now looking at it and knowing there's a path there, you can kind of see a path running, and the bend does seem to be where Delta is, so that one should be Delta. And then we go all the way back and we can now agree that we were looking at the right hill if this task is also true, and I think it is, because if we're looking at this hill with the 3 trees on it we go right to the end of it, and Echo does seem to be in about the right place there, and with zeros being clear I think I'm confident to say that that one should be Echo. And we now go out to a lone tree, which I said is the only tree in this massive area, and so by looking out and seeing that Bravo is on a tree, it must be this tree, because where else is the tree that Bravo is on? It's the only tree on the map, so it must be Bravo there, and it's on the right side of it. And then we go back to where we've answered Echo before, but we want this other hill, and it's quite a low hill from the control description, and we want the southwestern part of it. And by going from Echo you can see there's a small bump here, and we follow it along and we see that at the correct end of it is Foxtrot, so that one should be Foxtrot there. And then we come to this hill with the 2 trees, and you can see that Charlie is actually on the second tree, and we go for the first tree and we go round the hill a bit, and really if we're going round the hill a bit that one should really be Alpha as we follow it round. So I'm happy to say that one is Alpha, and I'm happy to say that this one is a no zero station, so very well done if you managed to get all of them right, because I think it was quite a tough one to put no zeros in. And then finally we have this fairly difficult station, to be honest, and I'm now thinking I've got one of these wrong, but we will get to that. The first task we have is the northwestern end of an earth wall, and really where could this earth wall be on the map? We have this patch of rough open land, which I believe is this section here, and there's some paved area running out the back, and as we look at it there's a tree which probably is this tree, and there's a hill out by Bravo with the 3 trees going around it, and so all these controls must be on this hill shape here, not the earth wall at the back, and so that one is a 0. And now we come to the task which I think I have got wrong, and I think this one should be Echo rather than Foxtrot, because if we look at it we can see this tree should be in the middle of this hill section, but to me I was just seeing all this hill as one and looking at Foxtrot to be the foot of the right end of that hill. But if that is true, where is the other end of hill right out here? It's clearly not there, so actually Foxtrot is on the end of the second one and Echo is on the end of the first one, so I think that one is Echo rather than Foxtrot, and that is 2 mistakes at the moment. We then go out to the hill which we have already discussed out the back with the 3 trees surrounding it, and Bravo is clearly on the southeastern foot of that hill, so I'm happy with that one being Bravo. Then we come forward and we want the back corner of this hill, specifically the northwestern part of it, and I think it's clear to me that Delta is on this first leg leading to Echo, and Foxtrot being on the second leg following it back, we actually want it behind the tree, so that one should be a 0. And then we go out out, and we are trying to identify what is possibly the hardest task of the day, the end of a fence. To me, this is quite hard to see, but I am definitely believing it is now, because if we are saying this is the patch of rough open land, we go to the left hand side of the hill with Bravo on it, and we look out the back, and you can see the paved area slightly just here. It's on the curve of that paved area, and so I believe it's definitely Alpha on the southern inside corner of the open land near the fence. But I think that was quite a tough task, and if quite a few of you zeroed it, I wouldn't be surprised. And yeah, that was a really good day. It's definitely been a different day to the previous 3, but I think it's definitely been an interesting aspect of training, and it's definitely something I feel that I should be working on. There was a few mistakes there, but we will see how we're doing. So 274, I think that score is. That's probably going to be very high at the moment. Let's have a look. And I am in joint 8th at the moment, which doesn't really surprise me. 2 mistakes with a 60-second penalty would have putting me fairly low, but it could actually be quite close. We've got a few joint scores of 3rd and 8th, but we will see how this plans out later, and I will see you afterwards for the overall results. And we're back here for the results, and you can see that I have slipped slightly down to 14th. I haven't gone too far, and some people have joined me as well, so there's 4 of us on 14th there, and it is mainly due to the 2 mistakes that I made. So we were debating whether I'd made 3 mistakes across it, but there seemed to be only 2 there, and we will go have a look at those 2. But firstly, well done to Alessio for winning the event. He held it for most of the day, doing it at 10:30 in the morning, and he got very close to losing it from both Viola and Severin coming in later in the day, but he won by a clean 6 seconds, so very well done to him. Let's go have a look at some of the station percentages now, and with this first station, I'm not really surprised that the first and the 5th tasks seem to be the reddest here, and we're already down to 22% for the very first task, with 566 of you thinking the answer to this one was Delta, where actually it was 0, with 183 of you getting that one right. This was the station in the car park, and as we said before, we were in the wrong bay, and that was only really identifiable by the tree, so if you spotted that, very well done. 22% of you seem to have done. And then the last task as well, being in the other bay, the map moved from the front to the back, but it also jumped a bay, so if you didn't notice that it had jumped, you would have put Echo, as most of you got it wrong did, but 353 of you managing to identify it as a 0 task, I don't think that's too bad. We then go to station 2, and as we scroll, it's looking a lot greener than the first one, although the first 2 tasks might be the reddest, and actually the first task was the reddest, with 210 of you thinking it was a 0, and a few of you putting a couple of different answers there, but most of you, 65% being 531 of you, managed to identify that Alpha was actually on the correct tree in that scenario, and actually more of you managed to get the first 0 right, with 208 of you thinking that it was Charlie, but most of you, 570, noticing that it was on the wrong fence, and so it must be a 0. And the third 0 is even better answered, although for those of you that got the wrong answer, there was a spread of wrong answers, but I think those 3 were all viable wrong answers in that scenario, so I don't think that's too bad. And then the final 2 tasks were very well done. Then we go to station 3, and there's a few red tiles appearing, but I think there's a spread really, and with these first 3 tasks having similar percentages, I'm not really surprised. The first and third tasks are the main areas of error though, because there's a very big spread of wrong answers. 70% of you, or 369 of you, managed to get 0 for the first task, but for people that didn't know where they were especially, most other answers were given quite commonly. So we will go have a look at that one. I think this is possibly the answer I got right by fluke, which I'm not afraid to admit. And also the third task, 557 of you put Bravo, but really there was again a fair spread of answers, 125 putting 0, and quite a few putting Charlie as well. So we will go have a look at those 2 tasks in that station there, but the last 2 definitely were very well answered, so well done if you got those right. We then go to station 4, and as we wait for it to load, we are now going to scroll, and the final task is already looking very, very red here. Most of you putting Foxtrot, and that is not as low a percentage as the very first task. It's 25 rather than 22, but that's still very low. However, 210 of you managed to get it right here with 0, and most of you put Foxtrot got 573. And I definitely think at the end when I was going through it, I think I said that I actually thought it was Foxtrot rather than 0, but it looks like I was wrong, and that shows that that was actually a really hard task. So if you managed to get that right, very well done. And actually most of you managed to get the rest of the station right. This 79% I think was the second hardest task, definitely, identifying whether it was Bravo or Charlie, but that one was really the use of the control description which helped you solve that, and most of you managed to do that. And then we go to station 5, and it's looking very green again. I think this was possibly the easiest station, as I managed to do it in 12 seconds, and none of the percentages are below 75%, so I think you've all done very well on this station, even to identify the 2 zeros, and so we don't really need to have a look at that station again. Station 6 then, we go through, it's looking a bit more redder. It's mainly this second task, as most of you put Foxtrot and it looks like it should be 0, and yes, it was another task below 50%. 402 of you managed to get 0, and 389 of you actually put Foxtrot instead, and I'm not really surprised by this. The thing that was mapped as a tree could definitely have been interpreted as that patch of thicket near where the control circle was, but it was definitely clear that the way the tree shaped up on the map, it was instead a tree, and so the control circle was miles outside the photo. So that one was clearly a 0, but I'm not surprised a lot of you put Foxtrot, and all the other tasks were above 80%. So if you managed to get most of them right, very well done to you. And then we go on to station 7, and it's looking very green, and then it suddenly turns a lot red, and I'm not really surprised. I got one of these wrong, I think, in this station. I think it was the 4th task, I think, caught me out, although 94% of you managed to get that right, so very well done to you for doing so. I thought that was hard. I thought that was quite hard to tell, but then I guess in the zero tolerance saying that zeros are clear, that one wasn't the clearest, whether it was a 0 or not, so I should have really gone with Echo. So well done to all 765 of you who got that right. The lowest percentages here were the other 2 zeros, with 225 going for Foxtrot instead of 0 for the 3rd task, and 217 going with Delta instead of 0 for the 5th task. To me, these were 2 clearer zeros, but we will go have a look at the 3 of them when we go back. And then we go to station 8, and this is looking a lot greener than the previous one, but the first task is definitely the worst answered from the column, but it's only 76%, so it's still very well answered, and the rest of them are actually at 90%, so well done to all of you for doing that. This first task being Delta though, this was the one on the path bend, and to me the path bend wasn't the clearest straight away, so I'm not really surprised quite a lot of you zeroed that, and there were a small spread of other wrong answers there as well, but again well done to the 600 odd of you who managed to get the correct answer of Delta there. And then finally we go into station 9, and it's looking very green, apart from maybe the last task might actually be the worst answered. I got the second task wrong here, we think, but the percentages here average around 70 to 80%, so that's not too bad. There's definitely a spread of wrong answers for these middle 3 tasks, with the second one me getting wrong. However, the spread of wrong answers here for the second task was between Echo, Foxtrot and 0, and I think these were the 3 clear answers that you could go for. Most of you getting it right with Echo, some of you like me going for Foxtrot, and a few of you going for 0 as well. So we will go have a look at that one. And also this last task, it was really a definitive choice between Alpha or 0. It wasn't the clearest, but there were also some clues to help you out, so I think 582 of you going with Alpha is a very good job, so well done if you did that. And also the task before it being a 0, but quite a lot of you went with Delta instead. This was the one on the corner of this hill shape, and so to me it was definitely behind the tree, but we will go have a look at that one as well. And so let's go back and have a look at these sections. Now station 1, as it loads, was definitely a difficult one to open in on. The 2 zeros here were the worst answered, and I'm not really surprised, because we're just looking at a load of parallel features, and the only way you can tell we're on the wrong one is by looking at the trees, because there is clearly a tree where Foxtrot is, and if we're believing we're looking in this one, there should be a tree there. So it's definitely not the bay we're looking in, so it must be a 0, as all the controls are in this one bay. And similarly with the last task, it's gone back to the second bay after we've done 3 tasks in here, so it must be over this hedge in the next section, and it's another 0. But if you're coming from Charlie and you're not looking carefully enough as we move up the map, you may definitely think it could be Echo, so I'm not really surprised a few of you put that. Now this task was the worst answered in this station, and I potentially think this was just because we were loading into the map and so you weren't particularly sure exactly where we were, but I think there are some definitive answers with the 2 lines of trees going parallel and the fence running down it, which does clearly show we're in the right place. And then we want these 2 fences to the left hand side of it. Again, I'm not really surprised a lot of you put 0, because if you miss this tree you may just think Alpha is on the front tree, but there are clearly no trees behind Alpha, so it must be on the back tree instead, and you can now see this tree, and so I think that one is Alpha. And also this one did have a spread of wrong answers, but I think with Delta and Foxtrot both being on this line of trees and Echo being between the 2 trees that we want just a lot further back, those 3 answers could have easily been put instead of 0, so I'm not really surprised they all were. And now we go into station 3, and this task definitely would have fooled quite a few of you, because we want the top of a hill and Alpha is definitely on the top of a hill. So if you're just looking like that, you would think the answer to this one is Alpha. But if you're saying that Alpha is here, you need to then work out where these other 2 knolls are, and they just don't seem to be on the map. So we have to trust the map and say that this isn't the correct location and it's actually a knoll behind the knoll that Alpha is on, and so that one must be a 0. And similarly with this one, there was quite a spread of wrong answers, with Bravo being the right one but Charlie and 0 being the incorrect answers that people put. And I think just noticing that the knoll has some woodland on it might have made you put Charlie, but you can clearly see there are 3 knolls in this circle and we want the one at the back of the group of 3, and so that one should be Bravo there. But I do think this station was partially quite tricky for those 2 tasks, so if you got them wrong, don't be too disheartened. This station was actually answered very well, but the main wrong answer here was the final task, with quite a few of you putting Foxtrot, and to be honest, afterwards I definitely thought it could be Foxtrot instead of 0, and I might have got this one wrong. However, we can see from the solution map that Foxtrot is on the end of this long hill rather than the T-shaped hill just below it there. And so looking at the map, we must say that Foxtrot is here, and you can just see the whole hill sort of extend behind. So thanks for Don Wathy for pointing this out as we were having our conversation about it after we'd both competed, but you can very clearly see there is a hill running a long way behind it, so it must be this hill, and the area we want must be a long way out the photo back there. But that was definitely the hardest task in the station, so if you got that one right, very well done to you. This 5th station was then very well answered. It was just a lot of tree counting, and quite a lot of you also noticed with the first task that it was on the wrong hill, so very well done to all of you there. And then this 6th station, it was mainly this 0 which caught a lot of you out, and it is mainly because this patch of green could easily be this section here. But if we are moving from the first task with Delta, we come down the hill to the first tree, and then we come along and we see that Echo is on a tree here, and then we immediately know that this must be a tree, it must be that tree there, and Foxtrot is just by it, so it is quite a long way out the centre of the circle, possibly 2 radii, and so that one is clearly a 0. But I'm not really surprised that one fooled quite a few of you, with this area easily being the bush just there. And then we come to what I thought was the hardest station of the day, but that has definitely turned out to be station 1, and I can agree with that. I thought that was very hard, but these 3 zeros I thought were particularly difficult, the second one especially, but 94% managed to get the second one, and I can agree now that that is probably in the earth bank. And looking through from the viewing point, we can see the viewing point is just below the hill about here. If we're going from there, you can look through the centre of the circle and go for the gap between the 2 middle trees, and by doing so we look through and we can see that Echo is in the gap, so that one must be Echo at the top of the earth bank there. And I think because they had stated that zeros will be clear and that wasn't the clearest 0 to me, I should have really gone with Echo rather than 0. But well done to all 94% of you that managed to get that right. This 0 wasn't as well answered, but I think this was potentially just some of you rushing a bit. It is clear that if we are stood here, and we've worked that out from the Charlie and Alpha task beforehand, that this circle is on the first line of trees that we hit, and Foxtrot is on the second line of trees that we hit. I appreciate the 2 lines seem to merge a bit, but these trees do look a lot taller than these ones, but in comparison they will be about the same height. So I definitely want the control to be here instead, and so that one is a 0. And also this one, quite a few of you managed to put Delta here, but to me this is definitely a 0, because we want the northern part of the hill, and that is out by the last patch of trees, and Delta is actually a bit further along near the second to last patch. So we can definitely say there that that one is a 0 because it's not far enough to the left. But again, as much as that was clearer than 74, that wasn't as clear as 73. So I'm not really surprised quite a few of you got that one wrong. But well done to the 70% of you that got it right. And then this station going into station 8 was definitely the best answered. The only one that really tricked a few people was this first task, and to be honest, I don't really think this path is too defined until you know there is a path there, and then you can see the path as this sort of darker patch. You are expecting to see a hill, but remember this is only a form line rather than a contour, so the hill's going to be slightly lower, and you can see here there is a contour and a form line for this bank, so it's going to be lower than about this height, and it clearly is, but there is a small bump there that you can just about see, and so Delta must be at the end of that on the path bend. But again, in the competition that was quite hard to spot, so if you did, very well done. And then it was mainly the second task and the last task in this final station which caught a few of you out. Most people managed to get this one right though, and to me I just wasn't getting a good grasp of this hill, and I thought this was all one leg. However, I can clearly see now that Echo and Foxtrot are on the two different legs, and we want the nearer one to us, so it must be Echo there rather than Foxtrot, which I put. But again, we're training, we're allowed to get things wrong, and it's just a bit of fun. Although it does seem to be that the two controls that I did get wrong, I should have put Echo instead, so that is just a coincidence, but it is quite a funny coincidence. And then this task, I definitely think you have to be brave in putting Alpha here, because there aren't really too many clues, and the fence that it is near is definitely not very visible in this photo. But from the rest of the station, we have worked out we're down here on this rough open land, so we have to use the sort of line as we look through, and we will go past on the right hand side the hill that we've already answered for 93, and then we cross some paved area, and then we reach a corner, and you can, if we follow this line up to Alpha, we go past the hill to the right, and you can just about see the corner of open land which Alpha is on. And so with Alpha on that corner of open land, I'm very happy to say that that one is Alpha. But at the end, if you're potentially rushing to put your final answer, you may not really pick up on that and just zero it straight away, which I'm not really surprised quite a few of you did, but well done if you managed to pick up on it and put Alpha instead. And to be honest, that was a really interesting day today. I thought it was very good. I definitely really enjoyed working with the contours today in a slightly less defined area than the Minecraft ones yesterday. And yeah, I think Ralph's done a very good job with today's event, so thank you very much to him for doing so. Let's go and see if the final results have managed to make it up there in the time I've recorded, and they are not there yet, so we will have a look at them at the start of tomorrow's video. But for now, that is the end of today's video. Please make sure you're liking the video and also subscribing to the channel so you get notified whenever I release a video, and also try and share this video with any other people you think would enjoy taking part in this series. I think as much as 1,000 people is quite a hard goal, it is definitely an achievable goal for us to do, and so I think by sharing these videos and just getting people onto the simulator, we're definitely expanding the community of Trello orienteers that we have. I know I definitely wouldn't be really doing any Trello if I hadn't had this simulator pointed out to me. So yeah, definitely make sure you're sharing it and also commenting below anything you think I've missed from the video, any analysis or any extra bits that you think I need to do. And I will see you again tomorrow for day 5 of the TORUS training week.